Is this going to be one of his good ones, or is this going to be one of the throwaway things?
Welcome to Hard Up Garage Car Stories. On this episode, you'll be wowed by cars. Oh, and by stories.
You seem to be helping people out even though you don't need to.
Well, I hope I'm helping people. This has all been, in fact, the whole history of VinWIKI is just a series of happy accidents that I never imagined or intended. In 2016, there was a reunion of cannonballers at the Greenwich Concours d'Elegance, and it was like the day before, and we all flew in, and they had some of the guys that were still alive from the 1970s that had done this, and even 40 years later, the chance to hear their stories, it was still the high point of their lives.
Yeah.
And I think as car enthusiasts, we have these stories, these high points, these craziest things that happened.
Yeah.
And in most cases, you know, and we see the comments every day, this guy's grandkids are the luckiest people on earth that are going to get to hear these stories one day. But I could tell from all these guys that their grandkids were sick of hearing these stories over and over again. But I wasn't. I wanted to. And so the treasure was in that there was now a platform for these cannonballers to come and tell their stories to an audience of people that really cared.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I was like, these stories need to be immortalized. They need to be captured. They need to be done so in a way that isn't a commercial for VinWIKI, that's something that they're proud of.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know, so many people had told me, Ed, you need to make YouTube videos. And the times that I'd done collaborative things with other YouTubers and let them drive my cars and do reviews and stuff like that, it had been really successful in converting to app users. So I knew that there was an audience out there and that it probably would make sense as a marketing initiative. But at the end of the day, you know, I just wanted the stories to be told.
Yeah.
And I had come off of spending about a year in 2015 and 16 finishing up my book about the New York to LA record. And you know, you kind of talk about driving really fast across the country like it's not a 300-page story.
Yeah.
But I wanted that to exist, to kind of have my record, not of really the drive, but of what the drive meant to me. Okay. And in packaging that, I'd kind of put my top 10 or 15 car stories from owning cars, loving cars, driving cars, selling cars as chapter openers.
Yeah.
Just to spice things up, kind of divert the attention from just a bunch of sweaty guys that smell bad in a car. And so they were kind of front of mind for me. And I thought, look, we need to build a platform where people can come on and just tell car stories. Yeah. And it doesn't need to be about me. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not someone who, I don't believe that I do enough interesting things that someone needs to hear from me every day or two to know exactly what that is. But I have done some interesting things in cars, and I don't mind sharing those. And so what's been awesome for me is that I get contacted by so many people that have these great stories, that have had these epic days, and they're willing to come and share those stories. So guys like Rob, who not only have done crazy things in cars, but probably even more significantly can package those experiences into something that the world can enjoy. Because there's tons of things that you go out and do in a car that aren't actually great stories. They were awesome to be there, but it doesn't read well. The audience doesn't relate. It doesn't have the payoff. It doesn't have all the elements of a story that makes it really, really fun to watch. So when I see guys that essentially become great VinWIKI storytellers, the VinWIKI is of no consequence there. They're great storytellers. And what we can do in terms of editing and trimming it down and making it coherent when it kind of goes off on tangents and stuff like that, that's fun for me. And it's an honor to be able to put the story in a form that at the end of the day they're proud of. Yeah. And when I hear guys say they went out to a car show, they went to SEMA, they went to a dealership or a manufacturer event, or they were just walking through the mall and somebody said, hey, I loved your stories on VinWIKI, that's awesome. I mean, it's a great thing, because if I made it such a story or such a commercial for our VinWIKI app, then nobody would want to share it. But I think that all of the 700 videos that we've produced, the owners or the storytellers are really proud to say, go check out my video on VinWIKI. And people aren't like, well, you mean that app channel? So to me, that's important. So when I see guys like Rob Pitts or Casey Push or Dustin Warless growing a new YouTube channel, or Mike Costigan, some of these other guys that are building really, really impressive channels, kind of off on their own tangent, even if it's like Rob's, which is really storytelling, that doesn't hurt my feelings, because he's given us such a gift to use his experiences, his platform. Exactly. And I think so many people have learned from how the audience understands and appreciates their stories in the VinWiki context that they're really excited to be able to have a little bit more creative control, a little bit broader platform, and the chance to really just put their story out there in the broader form, right? Because I don't try to let people on the VinWiki channel make commercials for themselves. Not because they don't have plenty to advertise, but mostly because I want it to be the story. As little lead up, as little back context as is necessary for the fun part of the story to make sense, and hopefully a lesson that the audience at large can kind of benefit from. Not, look how cool I am because I did this cool thing. That's not a story. That's not something anybody wants to hear. We get plenty of people that approach us wanting to tell that. And I'm like, look, I don't want you to come here and read your resume. I want you to say, you're never going to believe what happened on this day, in this moment, this experience. And sometimes it's a longer term story of a car that's very consistent with the VinWiki ethos, this idea that, we're a way for users, owners, stakeholders, people who know about a car to document and tell its story. But at the same time, I want it to be the thing they thought they'd never hear somebody say. And that's part of the way we edit them. We put the most ridiculous soundbite up front, and then the rest of the story explains that it actually does make sense in some context. And so I've been so pleased to be able to have the platform to offer other prolific automotive personalities the chance to tell their stories. And when I see them do something else great with it, I'm just proud of them and proud to have been a part of it.
What advice would you have for people that, let's say I wasn't fortunate enough to meet Rob to meet you. Right? I'm sat in my garage in, let's say, France, I'm just a 16-year-old kid trying to build something badass, and I want to get it out there. I want people to look at it, even if I get like 100 views in it in over a year. What would your advice be for them people that haven't got the ambition to think, I'll just go film on my phone and just do something because someone might like it? What advice would you give those people that think they can't do this, that have got the feeling there in their stomach that they probably shouldn't? Do you know what I mean?
Well, the thing about YouTube or any social media content creation is that you inherently have to start producing content when you don't have an audience. So we didn't start making content with any subscribers. I made a 30-second animated video about what the VinWiki app was, and I had a friend of mine interview the 5 founding members of the VinWiki technical team to kind of explain the functionality of the app, and that was like a 4-minute video. Those were our YouTube channel, and we used it only for hosting so that we could share it to Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, wherever else. And so we didn't have an audience, and I didn't know what would happen. I never expected that we would ever find our own audience. In fact, I asked David Patterson, that dude in blue, Rob Ferretti, Tavarish, Freddie Hernandez, Doug DeMuro, TJ Hunt, Evan Shanks, all guys I knew from that had prolific YouTube channels already. Can I send you VinWiki car stories and you release them on your channel as an extra show? Because all I cared about was the exposure that I knew if people saw VinWiki on YouTube, they tended to download the app. So I asked them all, like, will you just release one a day or one a week or whatever? Will you do that? And I sent them a Dropbox full of the first 25 stories. I said, any of them you want, like just have them and release them. And they all said no. And it puzzled me because I'm like, it's well-produced, generally good quality content with some production value. A friend of mine had done them all. I didn't do them, so they were great. And they all said no. And what I learned from that, it kind of, especially in retrospect after we gained a little bit of traction, was that the analytics that you get from YouTube are very descriptive, but they're not prescriptive. So they tell you what happened. They don't necessarily tell you what to do tomorrow. And so that's what's really challenging, is that I see all these numbers, I see all these charts and graphs and things like that, but I don't necessarily know how to make a decision based off of it. You can kind of A/B test things and say this worked, this didn't, but it's not a great way to develop a content strategy. the best way to develop a content strategy is to be authentic. Because you've got to be able to produce whatever that type of content is over and over and over again in a consistent way so that whatever audience you do build up knows what they're going to encounter every time they click on a notification. Okay. You don't want them to be guessing, like, is this going to be one of his good ones or is this going to be one of the throwaway things? Yeah. So the fact that you're trying to do something that's true to yourself and is a true exhibition of your passion for automobiles, as well as it's driven by, you got to make consistent and frequently released content. Yeah. I mean, there's no evidence apart from like Dude Perfect and some of these massive channels with extremely high production value that you can build an audience organically releasing anything less than 2 or 3 videos a week. Okay. That just seems to be the way the YouTube algorithm works. Yeah. It's not gospel truth, it's just what most people see. Okay. And so I knew from the beginning, like, when we had our first 25 of them shot, edited, and ready to go, my friend, my editor, said, like, you want to do one a week? I was like, no, I want to do one a day, one a weekday at least, so that if this is going to work, I want to find out fast. If it's going to fail, I want to find out fast. Yeah. And inherently, you're going to create content that's just you shouting into the void, hoping somebody sees it. And I spent that first month calling in every favor with every automotive person, every media outlet that I knew, saying, will you please just share one of these videos? And I'd see, you know, a share would be 10,000 views, you know, for someone. And I'd be like, you know, thank you so much. You know, do you want to come tell some stories? You know, horse trading in any way that you can to try to do whatever you could to get it out there. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's kind of this iron wall between Google and Facebook, Instagram. So you can get a video shared hundreds of times on Facebook. It will not equate to any more views on YouTube. But by that same token, collaborations work extremely well, like this with other YouTube channels. Just whatever you can do to kind of be symbiotic. One of the greatest things is if you ever release a video on the same day that has a very similar title to somebody else's video, it works very, very well. And so, you know, I'm enjoying seeing the guys like Rob and Casey Push and some of these guys that are seeing some traction on their personal channels, learning from the lessons that I've learned over the last couple of years of building VinWIKI content. Because I'd say we saw some, you know, kind of flashes in the pan early on. So the first video that we released was a guy talking about what a nightmare it was to maintain his McLaren F1. And that was our first video to hit 100,000 subscribers. We had one where my wife bought a Ferrari 360 for $31,000. That one got some early traction. DeMuro shared it on Auto Trader and people really liked it there. And then I told the story about me buying a Lamborghini from a prostitute, and that got a lot of personal shares. No, like, auto blogs were going to share that, but it got a good bit of traction. So we saw those 3 videos, but for at least the first 3-4 months, those 3 videos were a solid, I don't know, 75% of the views that the whole channel had. Yeah. And you're always going to have some critical mass that's driven by the virality of a few videos that are your hits or whatever you want to call them. Yeah. And over time, the real eye-opening moment was when we started to see some consistency. Yeah. That I could expect that any video that we put out on our channel was going to do about this well. Right. We started to see the first, you know, few start to get, you know, 100,000 or 150,000 or 500,000 views, and that was just utterly insane. And one thing I'm pleased with is we have a pretty consistent distribution from, you know, today a bad video will get 70, 80,000 views, and a great one will get, you know, 3 million. Yeah. But if you look through our catalog, every few thousand views, there's another video. So they're all kind of they're spread. There's not 1 or 2 that have 20 million views and the rest have 50,000. Yeah. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is reproducible at some kind of frequency.
Guys, tune in next time for another episode of Hard Up Garage Car Stories, where you'll be wowed by stories about cars.